Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Turtle Wins the Race Home-Based Business Podcast. My name is Kara Buntin, and I've owned a home-based business since 1999 in various capacities. So that's what we talk about here. Now, today I want to talk about something that happened that I saw. It was a terrifying moment on The Price is Right. All right, so they had all four contestants are on the price. If you've never seen The Price is Right, it's a game show. If you haven't seen The Price is Right, where have you been? Are you under a rock? Are you in a cave? I don't know. But it's a game show where people bid on things and they try to get as close to the price of something without going over the price, and then they'll win it, and then they get to play other games to win prizes. All right, so the four contestants are there. They bring out the prize. It is a computerized Bernina sewing machine. All right, I'm going, oh yes, give me that sewing machine right now, okay? So the first person bids $500. I lose my mind. I'm screaming at the TV. You moron, what is wrong with you? Okay, look, if you don't know, but see, this is the thing. If you don't know, you don't know. Second person bid $650. I'm going, what the, I was swearing at the TV. These idiots, it's a computerized Bernina. Third person, $750. Oh my God, I lost my mind. Here comes Sandra. I think her name was Sandra or Sandy at the end. Probably around my age. I don't know. She looks like she knows her way around a sewing machine, right? She says $751, which is the default move. If you know it's more expensive, but you don't want to go over the price, you just bid $1 over the highest bid. Here comes the price reveal, $3,000. Okay. Drew Carey, who's the host of the show, is like, $3,000. And he's shocked. I'm like, yes. Sandra, you go get your sewing machine. You go get that bad boy. You go get that Bernina. Yes. Okay. They were all shocked. Sandra wasn't. She's like, that's my baby now. And this is all because they had no idea how much the reference price for a Bernina was. And that's what I'm getting to in this podcast is let's talk about reference pricing. Let's talk about pricing in general. Because when you set your prices in your shop, you have to assume that people, they might know how much your products should sell for, and you probably know how much you have to sell them for to make a profit. But they might not. They might be those three morons in The Price is Right, and I say that, but they just honestly had no idea how much a Bernina computerized sewing machine was. And I'm thinking, oh my God, that is not a $500 machine. Are you kidding me? Because I know about Bernina prices. I was just looking at them recently. And that's only because I knew what the reference pricing was. All right. So reference pricing is basically the idea that you have an idea about what the right price should be. And anything way beyond that is going to be too much or not enough. Okay. But your reference price might be completely off. So these people had a reference, but how much should a sewing machine be? Okay, they're thinking, how much should a sewing machine cost? How much should that be? What is the reference price? And they're just guessing. So they guessed way too low because they don't know Bernina sewing machines, which is a different animal. Okay, so you can go get a cheap sewing machine for less than $500 probably, but it's going to be cheap. A Bernina sewing machine that's computerized is not a cheap sewing machine, and you can put the fabric in there and sit back and it'll sew the thing for you. So that's a different thing. They don't know the reference price for a Bernina, but Sandy did. Okay, so Sandra on the end is like, okay, I'm not sure exactly how much that is, but I know that the reference price is going to be a lot higher than $750. So I'm bidding $751, and she went home with her machine. So what you have to think about when you're pricing things, and I don't know if at this point, because Etsy was going to be rolling out this pricing tool. I know that eBay kind of has the same thing where they'll show you kind of the average sold price for whatever similar thing that you're looking at. And Etsy's been talking about rolling this tool out for sellers. By the time I schedule this podcast, it might be out. I don't know. But that is basically giving us a reference price that Etsy says, this is the reference price. This is the average price of the things that are selling that are similar to your listing. And that's what you should be thinking is the normal price. The problem is that you don't know what they're comparing that to. So number one, don't take any of those tools seriously, because you have to use that as information of how much are most people selling these things for in any form of them. So let's say you sell bracelets, but you use pure rubies. Okay, your bracelet's probably going to cost more than something that's made of plastic. I would hope. But the problem is that if Etsy is comparing bracelets to bracelets and they're not taking that kind of thing into account, your reference price is going to be very off. And the other problem when it comes to consumers is that people don't know what things cost until they know what they cost. I can guarantee you that every single one of those people on The Price is Right now thinks that every sewing machine is $3,000, even though that's not right either. But they think that that's a normal price for sewing machines, and that's what they're going to base their guesses off of in the future. But when a customer comes to a website or a shop, or they're on, Etsy or eBay or Amazon or whatever, they might not know how much something should be. And so that's why people compare prices. They do price comparison shopping. They ask if they can get discounts because they've seen it somewhere else that's cheaper. And that's not an insult. That's just them they're trying to figure out what the right price for that is. They might not know there's a quality difference. And I've seen a lot of people in groups and on, in the Etsy forums get really insulted when people ask them, why is this so expensive? You can just tell them it's made from high quality materials and it costs more to make because of that. The materials cost more because it's a better quality. And most people understand that. That's another piece of this though. But most people don't know what something costs until they know the first price that they see. They see that first price for something similar, and that gets stuck in their head as the reference price. That is why when you look at car price, let's use cars, because car prices went crazy recently. And you can think, I could buy a good used car for $12,000, right? But then recently, because there was like a computer chip shortage or something, the price of a used car was way more than that. So when people say, this used car costs $26,000, everybody's like, oh my God, that's so expensive. And yeah, it is. But it's because in our minds, we have a reference price, which is a lot lower than that. So when people say something is too expensive, it's not because it is too expensive. You might have priced that 100% correctly for what you need to earn a profit and for how much it costs you to make and the time that you put into it and the whole thing. But in their minds, their reference price is a lot lower because that's what they see. They see those prices that are lower. Now, the problem with this is that when you get undercutters in the market, and one problem is that people are comparing apples to oranges. Like I said, plastic versus rubies, not the same thing, but they're both bracelets. So in some people's heads that it is the same thing, but it's not. You know what I mean? But the other problem is when undercutters flood the market and people start seeing it's really competitive, they'll start dropping prices. And that reference price starts dropping too, because people come onto the platform wherever they're shopping and they start seeing that there are different places that they can buy something similar. It might not be the same thing exactly, but there could be something similar that's a lot cheaper. And they're like, well, why is that cheaper? Maybe that's the right price and this person's overcharging me. Or it could be that the price is so much lower that it looks off when you compare it to other prices, and that they think something's wrong with that low price. So the challenge is, number one, it shouldn't be a challenge. You should be pricing things based on your own costs and how much it costs you to make and what profit you want to make and what your overhead is, because you have to add that in. I mean, there's all kinds of things that go into pricing a product the right way, and none of it should be looking at what other people are charging, unless you're comparing exactly the same thing. But I wouldn't even do that. When I look to see if there's a product that I want to sell online and it's something new, I will first say, how long does it take me to make it? Like, I'll price it for myself before I even do any market research. So I'll say, this is how much I would have to spend to make it, and this is how much I would have to charge for it to make a profit. And then I go look at the pricing that other people are charging. If everyone else is charging way, way, way lower than that, then I probably won't even try to sell it, because I know that when people come to the platform to shop, they're looking at all these low prices, and that becomes the reference price in their heads. And then if they look at my price, they're going to say, oh, that's a lot more expensive. The way that you get around this is, again, I talked about customer perception last week. The way that you get around this is to present your products in a way that makes them seem worthy of a higher price. And that goes to your branding. It goes to the photos that you take. It goes to the way that you present your business to the public. And if you present your business in a way that makes people think that you are more expensive normally, then that price that seems higher than the reference price isn't going to be such a big deal. All right. So we all know, you all know, if you go to a website and it looks cheap, and I don't even need to define this because it's different for everyone, but there are certain things that will make a website look like it should be less expensive than others. Okay. And they've done studies with e-commerce marketing where they'll flash a website on the screen for like 1/10 of a second. That's all it takes, because you can tell from that flash if it's a high-end website or if it's cheap. And that is the kind of thing that you need to be thinking about when you're doing your branding, your colors, the whole thing. It all works together to give customers the perception of whether the prices are going to be high or low and whether it's justified. And years ago, I should go try to find this video again. There was a video of a girl who, I think she was a college student, who put together what she called a fake gallery. And she said, can we sell these things? I think it was an experiment. I don't know what the context was. I think it was an experiment for school or something. She wanted to just put together a fake art gallery and see if she could make money selling the stuff, because people would think it's a real gallery. Okay. She basically wanted to to create the perception of a real legitimate art gallery. And does that increase the value of the junk art that's in there? And I mean, she literally had her friends drawing stick men and just doing terrible drawings. They were not artists. They couldn't draw. It didn't matter, because what she did is they actually rented a gallery space. They put up framed, it looked like a gallery. Okay, so she kept referring to this as a fake art gallery. And I'm watching this video, and people did actually come in. They publicized it. They went through the whole thing like you would do with a real gallery opening. And people came in and actually were buying the artwork. And they did say that all the proceeds were going to go to charity. Okay, so that's another piece of it, because when people think that their money is going to charity, they're much more willing to spend. But she didn't create a fake gallery. She created a gallery. And I think that's the piece that they didn't understand in this, because when you put up the facade, okay, this was fake art, I guess. I mean, how do you define art? These were not drawings by artists. We'll just put it that way. These are drawings by people who couldn't draw, or they said, I can't draw, and they just did something. They put it in a fancy frame. They put things in glass cases, and that gives the perception of value. If the background and the trappings of the room, or your storefront, or your photos in your website, if that gives the perception of value, then people are not put off by prices that are a little bit higher. But if your storefront looks like junk, if it looks like the yard sale, if your photos are dark and unfocused, then people don't put as much value on that, and they're not going to want to pay a higher price. So the way that you get around the reference pricing, which can really be bad if you have a lot of undercutters in your area, in your category, you need to give the perception of being higher quality, and you need to make sure that all the details are there. And that's the marketing. That's presenting your business to the public. So I thought that the gallery thing was interesting, because she was like, I can't believe people bought all this fake stuff for my fake gallery. And I'm like, no, you made a gallery. You put a gallery together. Just because you don't have experience with that, you did everything the way that a gallery does. And the public who came in perceived that to be a real art gallery, because it was 100% a real art gallery. The art itself was done by amateurs. Maybe no one would have bought anything if they thought that it wasn't going to charity. We don't know. It was a poorly designed study that missed a big piece, but it was interesting because it showed that people have a very specific way of looking at things, and that there are certain things that will trigger them to spend more or to spend at all. And if she had put this together, hadn't publicized it that much, she had like really terrible looking, I think she had like a professional design the flyers for it. So everything was 100% professional. It looked really good. And that gives the perception of being real. But if she had just thrown it together in somebody's garage, if she'd had a yard sale, garage, tacking the pictures up on the wall with thumbtacks or scotch tape, and there was no fancy food, there was no caterer, there were no glass cases, people would not have come in and bought this stuff because they would be saying, why am I buying this, right? But the perception of legitimacy was there, the perception of it being a real art gallery, because it was. Everything was in place to be an art exhibit, and people walked right in and bought the stuff. So you need to be aware when you are pricing your products that if it has to be a little higher because the reference pricing is way off because of all the undercutters or the cheap merchandise that's flooded every venue, then you need to make sure that your marketing and your branding is on point and everything looks good, because you can get a higher price. You can command those higher prices if people see that your branding makes you look that, it gives them the perception that you are a quote unquote better business. That's all. So just make sure that when you're doing your pricing, you keep that in mind, because if you don't think about it and your shop looks like garbage, then people aren't going to want to pay prices, even if that's what you really legitimately need to charge. And if the quality of your products is great, that's fine. But if the quality of your shop is not, that's not going to fly. There's going to be a difference in perception there. Leave me any questions, give this video a thumbs up, and I will talk to you later.